singing to that highway song. Got a little naive smile, the kind that drives you out. Nothing like playing with fire, brings forward alive. Beat you with a fuse you light, you're good dynamite. You made my day when you walked into town beside me, whispered with your eyes, let's go. You made me say what's your name, girl, you're lonely. Can I call you if I ever go down this road? And I can't seem to find the things I want.
The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
14:20 in the morning, 14 minutes and 20 seconds where the sports talk to get you through your daily commute. Hot takes, recaps, best bets, and a little humor to get your day going in the right direction. Sit back, grab your coffee, and let's get into it. All right, 14:20 in the morning for this August the 1st, 2023. Today's show is brought to you by Caldera Lab and calderalab.com. Use promo code 1420lab at Caldera Lab for the best in men's skincare, and use promo code 1420lab to get 20% off their all natural men's skincare products, and take care of that mug throughout the dog days of August, which we're in now. And thank you very much for making us part of your day each and every day, whether you watch us on YouTube or the podcast version of the show. And check out all our great shows. And remember, we are part of the Belly Up Media Network. Go to bellyupsports.com and check out all the great articles and other podcasts that are out there for your listening pleasure after listening to ours, of course. Anyways, the Major League Baseball trade deadline is just over 5 hours away from being to fruition, being that's it, that's all. Your teams will have to be set by the NEOD today, or even by 6 o'clock Eastern, I think it is. It's going to be interesting to see how it all goes, how it's all going to pan out, who becomes sellers and who might become buyers in the minutes and hours and minutes ahead. You wonder, it's funny how we talked about this last week a little bit, how people's lives can change and how they can be upended. You all of a sudden you're a baseball player in one city. Yeah, you're getting compensated well. And then a couple hours later, you're on an airplane going to a different city and having to uproot your family, or tell your family they're staying where they are. And we'll see you in a couple of months, whatever it might be, because the kids are enrolled in school already and everything else. So you don't know what might happen in the next couple hours, but it can, I'm sure there's a lot of players who know that they're on the trade, on the block a little bit, that their teams might be sellers, and there's other teams that are buyers. Obviously, it's funny to think that these guys are sitting on pins and needles thinking, don't trade me, or maybe the wives are saying, don't trade this guy, don't trade my husband away, because we got a nice thing going on here. Like I said, they're compensated quite well, but it's always you got to put the human element into these guys who do get traded and who end up lives being uprooted for might be 1, 2, 3 months, because most of these guys are rentals when they get traded at this point in the Major League Baseball season, or whatever sport we might be talking about. The trade deadline, it's a big thing throughout sports. It's a make or break for a lot of franchises. Some teams think that they have a good shot at doing some damage in the playoffs, or to make the playoffs, or do something that they didn't think they had a chance of doing when the season started, but they find themselves in a situation where they can go and make a deal and get something done. We talked as well last week a little bit about how some teams who might have been sellers as of a week ago today, let's talk last Tuesday, and then all of a sudden you win 7 of 10, or you win 4 in a row or 5 in a row, and all of a sudden you find yourself in a situation where you become a buyer, like aka the Chicago Cubs, who had a really good weekend against the St. Louis Cardinals. I think they won 3 out of 4. They won 8 out of their last 10. They lost to their rival. I think it's a real rival right now, with the Cincinnati Reds last night. And Moose was there at Wrigley Field having a good time. I saw he was sitting in the bleachers in left field. But you look at the team like the Chicago Cubs, who were sellers as of this time last week, and everybody was saying that Stroman and Bellinger were going to be leaving, and I had Bellinger maybe going to my New York Yankees. We'll get into those losers in a second. But you think that's like Stroman and Bellinger, because they're both can opt out of their contracts and the deals and all that on, and they can opt in and opt out, whatever it might be. But you had two guys who were probably going to be moved, but now all of a sudden they had a good week last week. They're in the hunt. I think they're only 3.5 out of a wild card spot. So they went and added some players yesterday. So now they are off. They're off to the race and hoping to make the playoffs and see what you can do. Because once you get into the dance, you never know what you could do. We stated before here on the show that just getting into the dance, I don't know if that does you a lot of good, because what's 2 more games in the big picture things? 2 more games. It's only 2 more games than the Oakland A's got this year, or the Kansas City Royals are getting this year. So I think you got to look at your team, if you do have an actual shot at winning something, is to go out and make a good deal, but don't make a deal just to appease the fan base, and don't hurt your team long term by getting rid of a player here, a player there, because you might be better next year. And trading away a guy that's in the big leagues now for a prospect, I think it's a risky business. I've always thought that, especially in baseball, because you don't know what you're getting with these guys, whether their arms might get blown out, because they all do, whether they can't hit the big league level, and on and on it goes, because every prospect is just a prospect. I've said this 1,000 times here at 1420 World Headquarters, that no matter what you do, these guys are just kids, and these guys, they all don't pan out. Obviously, not every baseball player pans out, so I don't know why there is such a fascination with prospects and the hopes that these guys might turn out when you know you have guys in the big leagues. I know finances come into play a little bit, but right now, if you have a team that has a chance, and you're on the bubble, going out and getting a prospect, I don't know if that's going to help you out a whole bunch, and getting that done, and getting rid of some prospects in the same light. So it's a real slippery slope what you got there. But like I said, it's interesting to see how a few wins here and there can really turn a season around for a team, and think that they're all of a sudden contenders. And I wouldn't recommend that these contenders go out and sell the farm and everything else, although I'm not a prospect hugger by any means, because like prospects are cool, but championships are cooler, right? One of those things. So you got to look at it that way to not do that. A couple interesting developments that happened in the last hour or so is or last night. I was on the ball field last night, but in the last 20 hours or so, you had the Toronto Blue Jays and their superstar, and who's their best player, Bo Bichette, getting injured. He is out a little bit. He's going to be out. Well, he's got a hyperextension of the knee, so who knows what might happen there. And so you got to think that the Jays, they're on pins and needles right now with their medical staff, thinking, okay, what are we going to do with him? Do we go out and get a Tim Anderson from the Chicago White Sox and help bolster our defense and our offense? Because we don't know how long our best player, and it's not Vladdy, their best player right now is Bo Bichette, and go out and are we going to make a deal to get something to replace him, and how long is he going to be out? Can we put a Band-Aid on our season right now if Bichette's only going to be out for a week or 10 days? Because it's never a week or 10 days. It seems that 10-day IL stint always ends up being about 3 weeks when it's all said and done. But you wonder what the Jays are going to do and what the medical staff's going to say, because it's Bichette. He's a gamer. He played 159 games. I think he averages the last 3 years. So he's not want to be out of the lineup. So for him to be out, that hurts the Jays a lot, and it hurts. You got to remember, he's an arbitration guy, so he's looking to get paid again next year. On and on it goes. So how much urgency is it for him to get back and maybe hurt his knee long term or whatever it might be? The prognosis is still out there. You don't know what's going to happen with Bichette, but you got to think that's just in the last 20 hours how the Jays they were buyers. They went and got that kid from St. Louis, and so you got to think that they were going to be buyers today and going to see what they could get, what they could do. But now with Bichette, who knows? And the question mark above his head and his flowing locks that go every night, and his headbands and everything else, you got to think there's a big question mark above his head that might be going on. Another one that I found interesting that I heard about this morning a little bit, and this guy's been subject to trade rumors for just a few days now. I thought he was going to, out of the two old timers on the Mets, I thought it was going to be Verlander that was going to be leaving the Mets before Scherzer did. We'll talk about him in half a second, but it's interesting to hear that all the talk about Verlander, he's been rumored to go to a few different clubs already. I just saw that, of course, the San Diego Padres, they're in on him. They're in on everybody. I don't know where they're getting all their money from, but it doesn't much matter. But the Padres are right there. They're trying to still figure a way out. But back to Verlander. Verlander is rumored to be going back to Houston, where he's won a World Series, back to or not back to, but to the Los Angeles Dodgers, and a and then also, like I just said, San Diego, and then a team that came out of nowhere a little bit, which surprised me quite a bit, was him going to the Baltimore Orioles. The Orioles won again last night in Toronto. They got a hell of a team. They took it to the Yankees 2 out of 3 over the weekend. Not that that's a major accomplishment taking it to the New York Yankees anymore, but it's one of those things. You got to think that the Baltimore Orioles, if it's rumored to be out there, what if the rumors are true? Who knows? Because everybody knows the money that Verlander makes. I think it's he's probably owed about $15 million for the rest of this season and another 43 for next season. So that's a lot of money. That $43 million is pretty is 2/3 of what the Orioles make already, right? So it's one of those things. You don't know if the Orioles are going to be in on a guy like that. I thought they would be in on Stroman, but like I said, the Stroman's out of the equation now because the Cubs are winning, and Stroman hasn't been that good the last 3 or 4 starts in Wrigley Field or with the Cubs at all. So it's interesting to see what's going to happen with Verlander and whether he's going to opt out and ask for that trade. I mean, it must be out there a little bit. He's probably open to a trade because the Mets season has been a disaster. Might be the worst season in not just baseball history, but in sports history, the way that Mets team has turned out. You think what everything they had going for them, and then Edwin Diaz went out, and then at the World Baseball Classic, jump up and down and celebrating his knee was gone, and the Mets season went from bad to worse at that point. The season hadn't even started yet for the Mets. So Diaz, and then on it goes, and the Mets are 18 games, whatever it is, below 500, way back in the playoff standings. And Verlander and Scherzer were 2 guys who weren't pitching very well for the Mets, but the money that Steve Cohen spent for the Mets, you wonder what the hell happened there, because he's $300 million in payroll, and then another $100 million in salary tax. Everything else is $400 million. Yeah, that's 14. He's got 14 or 15 billion in the bank, but you spend $500 million on a team that doesn't make the playoffs. That can't be a very good feeling. And for the Mets to Met the way they did, it's quite astonishing. And like I said, it's got to be one of the worst performances by a team is in sports history, like a team that was prognosticated to maybe go to a World Series and do some damage, and they just didn't. I found it kind of interesting I think it was on Friday or Saturday, when the Mets pulled the deal to trade David Robertson, their closer, ex-Yankee. I thought he was a really good player. They traded their closer who took over for Diaz when Diaz got hurt. They traded him to a East Division rival in the Miami Marlins, and then Scherzer was on the radio or on the press or whatever, talking to everybody about what that trade meant. He goes, I got to go talk to management about this, because he wasn't happy that the Mets were mailing it in, and they didn't. The way it sounded like they didn't confer with him if he would approve of that kind of a trade with Robertson going to the Marlins. And it's kind of funny. He kind of got all poopy pants, and he didn't like it. I have to talk to management. Well, you don't. You're just a player. I understand you're a $40 million player, but management made a decision. Your team isn't that good, and for you to get poopy pants there, Max Scherzer, I don't think it was very appropriate for you to go out and say anything. And then lo and behold, you cried and whined and everything else, and you find yourself with the Texas Rangers team, who's making some waves there as well. So the Rangers are right there, and they went and got Jordan Montgomery, I think, too, from the Cardinals, who's a fire sale, and that's another disaster of a season that doesn't really happen in St. Louis for the team to do that bad. But Scherzer finds himself on a World Series contending team with the Texas Rangers. I don't know if I trust in fact, I don't trust their reliever in Aroldis Chapman, the Cuban Missile. I don't think he's a Cuban or a missile anymore. He's always going to be a Cuban, obviously, Brent, but he's not a missile anymore. And so you wonder if that was a smart trade or just one of those things. It's a shiny toy, and he was just dealt out there, put out there, and he's out there. I don't think he's making a lot of money. When the Kansas City signed him, I think he was only getting $1 million or something. It wasn't very much, but yeah, he's there in Texas, and who knows what they're going to do now with Max Scherzer and what they're going to do in the coming minutes and hours into the trade deadline. The other interesting thing, we'll get off this in half a second as well, is is how the San Diego Padres, I think they're 8.5 out of the division, 5 out of a wild card spot right now. I think that's a pretty tough lead to overcome. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with Blake Snell and Hader, Josh Hader, the best closer in baseball right now. But Snell, they're both free agents at the end of the year. You wonder what's going to happen with that team. And then they say they're in on the Verlander sweepstakes right now as well. Nothing's came across in the 14 minutes I've been talking to you. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there. And what I find odd is that you can wait for a team to come around, and the talent that they have with Machado and Soto and Tatis Jr. and on it goes. guys, and with these two guys I just mentioned, you like Musgrove pitching as well, and everybody's saying, well, eventually that talent has to come through. Well, they haven't come through 105 games wherever they played so far. They're 8 games out, so there must be a reason why they haven't won any ball games. And to say that they're still buyers and looking to bolster their lineup to get to that wild card spot, they have a team. They have some pitchers who could do some damage, but to have a team that's never done anything of any substance, I think with the NLCS last year, which is a big accomplishment, obviously, but for them to say throughout the year that they're close, eventually you are what your record says you are, and usually that time's around 60 games. Now that you're at the 100 game mark, it's interesting to see what it's interesting to hear that they think that they're still in the market and that they have a chance of doing some damage if they made the playoffs. And they could. The Philadelphia Phillies almost won one last year out of nowhere as a wild card team. So you never know. But if you're not in the big dance, you can't get the big prize, right? So I guess they can still do it. But for that team with that much talent to be that far out, it doesn't make a whole bunch of sense for them to still think they're in it. Eventually, you just are who you are, and that team just doesn't have have what it's going for them. And you look at team like the Baltimore Orioles. That's why another reason I was quite surprised that they were in on the Verlander thing, not just because of the money, but just because the Orioles have a team that was built through the minor league system. They have guys who played together for a few years now. They have guys who went through A ball or rookie ball and Double A and go to battle for each other. And they may have won a championship in Double A or A. I don't do much research on the wherewithal of the Baltimore Orioles farm system, but it's just one of those things. Like you have a team that's built pretty good. You have a team that wins together. You have a bunch of young, gritty kids that seem to like each other in Baltimore, and adding a guy like Verlander, yes, his athleticism is second to none. He's going to the Hall of Fame, obviously, but you don't know what kind of locker room dynamic a guy like Verlander would bring. I'm not saying he's a bad guy. I'm not saying he's a good guy, because how would I know? But I'm just saying, like, sometimes adding a piece here and there at the trade deadline can do more harm than good sometimes, because sometimes your team's on a roll because your team plays well together and your team has each other's back a little bit, and they go out there and do it. So sometimes you can upset the apple cart a little bit by adding a guy here or there, and you got to think you'd like a teammate who's making $40 million a year to go and pick up a tab now and then, obviously, but you don't know what it would do for the locker room and how it would affect the team cohesiveness out there in Baltimore. You just wonder how it's all going to work out for that team, and how it's all going to work out for the Baltimore Orioles, who right now is the best team in baseball. And I don't think that can be disputed. Atlanta had a bit of a stretch there where they went down, but the right now the Baltimore Orioles are rolling right now, and I picked them for my Brent's Best Bets by Bodog last night to beat the Jays, and lo and behold, they did. It's going to be interesting to see how it all turns out. Trade deadline. Is anybody going to make a deal right now to make a team them better, push them over the edge to become a World Series #1 spot? Who knows? Because I don't think there's anybody right now who's head and shoulders above everybody going to roll through the playoffs like the 98 Yankees did, or for the Toronto Blue Jays did back in 92, 93, or whatever, or whatever team it might be you want to talk about, World Series champions. I don't think there's anybody right now who's head and shoulders above. So this trade deadline is interesting, because there's a lot of teams who are in the mix right now that have a chance to do a little bit of damage and do something and maybe win one, and adding a player here and adding a player there. How often do these trade deadline deals work? Probably not very often. They get a team over the edge. They maybe win you a game or two here and there and might get in the playoffs, but I can't think off the top of my head. I'm sure there's one. I'm sure there's 10. I'm sure there's 20 trade deadline acquisitions that have really helped a team get into a World Series scenario. But how often do these guys do these deals make a difference? Winning's hard. Only one team can do it every year. So obviously this is a Brent original. Obviously not every trade deadline deal works, right? So you have to be really careful how you go about with your team, how you go about your long-term future, what you're going to do. And then upsetting the apple cart sometimes isn't the best thing, because there's a lot of times where a guy is here, a guy is there, but the owners and the accountants get involved in these deals, and it more often than not it goes sideways. Speaking of going sideways, Ed, I don't know. I got to get a new segment. Maybe it's called "Stupid Things Aaron Boone Says." I don't know if anybody heard this. I know I wasn't going to talk about the Yankees at all, because they're so far behind. They think they're ahead. They're not very good. They're terrible, actually, if you want to get down to it. But the last couple of days, Aaron Boone and the Yankees have been a circus, really, when it comes to their media relations and everything else. After the 9-3 drubbing to the hands of the Baltimore Orioles, the aforementioned Baltimore Orioles at a night where it was 6-0 before I even finished my first beer watching that game on Sunday Night Baseball. I think it was an awful display by by the Yankees and by the pitching staff, and on it goes. And you just wonder what the hell happened there. And then after the game, Boone was put in front after the Yankees lost 9-3. Boone was put in front of the media, and he says, and I quote, he says, outside of the strikeouts, I thought our at-bats were building off of last night. I thought we grinded out really well. We made it tough on Kramer. We just couldn't finish off. This is after the Yankees struck out 18 times. Boone said they made it tough on the pitcher when they struck out 18 times. 2/3 of the at-bats they struck out on. They didn't make it tough on Kramer at all. So for Boone to say that, what an idiot. Shut your mouth, Boone. Like, I cannot believe that they let this guy talk on a nightly basis. Yes, it's part of the management. Yes, they have to. But it's unbelievable that Boone would go out and say that they made it tough on the pitcher when they struck out 18 times. And last night they struck out another 12 times against the Tampa Rays. 30 strikeouts in 2 games ain't going to get it done. It was last night too. They put in Johnny Brito because Herman had something wrong with his armpit. So they put Brito in as a spot starter, and then Herman came in a little bit later in the 5th inning, and he gave up no runs. It was great. Brito gave up 5, and the game was over before it started again. So the armpit thing, the doctor said, it'll go away. He must have went to that doctor right beside U.S. Chicken, where they sell great gyros, by the way, in the Bronx, right across the Yankee Tavern. There must probably be some quack doctor across there. So, it'll go away. Put him into pitch. He'll be fine. The Yankees are a joke. I was going to get into them today, but I'm a little bit frustrated. I didn't think you guys wanted to hear that because the trade deadline day is a lot more enjoyable to talk about than the New York Yankees. I'll rip on them on Thursday morning when I do my Yankee weekend review and post-mortem and everything else with the Yankees. But anyways, a little word from our sponsors at Caldera Labs. Summer is here, everybody, and the sun shines and you feel like you're standing on the surface of the sun while you're outside. Your skin deserves the utmost attention. Fortunately, our friends at Caldera Lab are here to ensure your skin is well prepared for the season ahead. Ever since I incorporated Caldera Lab into my routine, taking care of my skin has never been simpler. Their products are clinically proven to help visibly reduce wrinkles, fine lines, and signs of aging. Gain confidence and get an impeccable first impression this summer by using Caldera Labs. Don't miss out on joining the skincare revolution trusted by countless men. Use promo code 1420LAB at calderalab.com to enjoy an exclusive 20% off their finest products. Caldera Lab creates a high-performance men's skincare product. The regimen leads off their product lineup with a twice-a-day routine to transform your skin. Inside the bundle, you'll find the clean slate, the base layer, and the good. Caldera Lab is made with top-tier ingredients. It's a great addition to your daily routine, taking less than a minute morning and night. And it's here to reduce wrinkles, fine lines, and signs of aging. Avoid being the butt of everyone's joke around the pool this summer and take the leap to skin royalty with Caldera Lab. Get 20% off by using promo code 1420LAB at calderalab.com and save yourself 20% on your purchase today and take care of that skin all summer long and then into the winter so you're looking good in the winter months and it all takes care of it. Let's get to birthdays, get you guys out of here. On this day, where are we on this day in 1993, 14-time Major League Baseball All-Star Reggie Jackson is inducted in the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York. Mr. October, as he was nicknamed by Yankee legend Thurman Munson, after his 3 home runs on 3 pitches. I'm reading too fast. In the 1977 World Series versus the Dodgers, he had a 21-year career in the big leagues, winning the World Series 5 times, twice with the Yankees, 3 times with the Oakland A's over his career. Jackson hit .262 with 563 home runs and 1,702 RBIs. One of the all-time great talkers, one of the all-time great guys, great Yankees of all time. Never met a microphone he didn't like. Called himself the straw that stirs the drink. And him and Billy Martin had their epic duels. Larry is number 44 crossing the plate at the old Steel Stadium in the Bronx. So on this day in '93, Reggie Jackson got into the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York. And happy birthday to Madison Bumgarner, born on this day 34 years ago in Hickory, North Carolina. Bumgarner was drafted in the first round, 10th overall of the 2007 Major League Baseball amateur draft by the San Francisco Giants. Bumgarner is a 3-time World Series champion with the Giants, 2010, 2012, and 2014, where he was the NLCS MVP and the World Series MVP, and he can swing the bat a little bit too, Madison Bumgarner. So happy birthday to him. He was released this year by the they said enough there in the Arizona Diamondbacks, because they had a pretty good team, and they said it's your services are no longer required here, Mr. Madison Bumgarner. So it's kind of happy birthday to Mr. Madison Bumgarner. Anyways, thank you very much for listening to the show today. We appreciate everybody who does. Thanks for watching on YouTube, everybody who's watched, and make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel and talk to people about the show, because that's how it spreads the good word. We're 19 days away from our third birthday, so we've got some stuff ramped up for that. So thank you very much for having us be here all for 3 years now and doing this. We appreciate all the support that everybody gives us on a daily basis. Go check out our merchandise store as well and get yourself something pretty, and support the 1420 Sports Bar podcast, and listen to us wherever you get your podcasts. And like I said, talk to people about the show. We appreciate all the support you guys give us on a daily basis. Anyways, that's it for today's show. Well, I don't know if me and Dave are getting together tonight or tomorrow night. My people will call his people, the agents and stuff. No, I'm kidding around. It's just there's stuff going on in the background, so we'll figure out how that's all going to work. But anyways, that's it for today's show. And remember, it doesn't matter where you are; it's who you're with. Have yourself a good day, folks. And we'll talk to you tomorrow.
Take me out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jack. I don't care if I never get back. Always root for the home team. They don't win, it's a shame. Now it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game. Now let's root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame. Now it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game. Oh, what a game!
A message from Major League Baseball.
You just listened to the 1420 Sports Bar podcast. 4 beer with sports talk and a whole lot more. We are part of the Belly Up Media Network. Let's get into it.